Yeah, we've got a lot on this one. And we have to get to the best of topic.
Yeah, Daniel, this episode doesn't have anything we can cut.
Yeah.
We just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, this is...
As long as it takes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're going to get started. And, like, we don't even have time for lengthy pre-show here. Like, we're going to get into it. And we're just going to be like, Lucas, we got it. Like, we got to move on. Because we have, like, it's been 45 minutes and, like, we still haven't even gotten to the main topic. I'm like, Daniel, there's still more to say.
There's a lot of film cameras to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, let me look up here my fancy cool new watch and start my stopwatch here so that I know how long this episode's going. I don't even know if this is the episode.
This is the episode, man. We are
We've
here.
already started.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
I know what you're not prepared for.
What am I not prepared for?
Me to introduce a new segment.
Oh my. We don't have time for that today, Lucas. Don't have time.
So I know that I previously retired one of our old segments because I felt that it was appropriate for us to have 3 formal segments on this podcast because of the triangle diffusion.
Uh-huh.
I'm not removing any of the previous segments. I know that that's very upsetting for you. This is just going to be like another segment over here. It's not a part of the triangle. It's just like another segment.
I'm not sure.
Okay, and the reason I'm starting the segment is because I feel like we've already covered things that would be in this segment.
So it's like a retroactive
and so
segment?
so I'm retconning previous episodes.
Okay.
And saying that we've already done versions of this segment before, but now we're formalizing it. And I'm going to call it Cameras Were Better When Cameras Were Worse.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but
things were better when things were worse. What do you want from me?
Let's just see what you got here.
This is really good. Okay, so I want to present to you this what the Epson RD1.
Is that a camera?
Yeah. Do you know Epson, the printer company?
Epson makes printers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also make salt.
Really?
No, it's Epsom salt.
Oh, jeez. You got me so good. I was like, what is it, like Samsung? Yeah, no, Epson makes skateboards and printers.
Yeah, obviously.
What else would they make? They made like 5 digital cameras back in the early 2000s whenever everyone was making digital cameras.
Right. Yeah, I remember those days.
Mm-hmm.
My first digital camera was a Toshiba.
Really?
Yes, really.
Okay.
We might have to talk more about that at some point.
That's how you put that on the list. That'll be for the new year. That's cool. So this puppy. Now, I'm going to get into some of these specs and whatever, and we're going to talk about CCD sensors.
Okay.
Do you know what a CCD sensor is?
I've heard of them, and I know that some old video cameras actually use CCD sensors. I think they were better than the early CMOS sensors. Like, it used to be like a premium thing.
Yeah, so it used to be that CCD was just better than CMOS, and you had lower noise and better color fidelity.
Yep.
And people just liked them. And so if you're looking for an old camera, there's still a group of people out there that are like CCD purists. They don't want any of this CMOS garbage.
Well, I think it actually might be part of like the aesthetic of those old skateboarding videos.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean, though, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those cameras use CCD sensors, and I think that might actually be part of why they're sought after.
So this Epson RD1 doesn't even shoot video.
Okay, so it's just photos.
It's just photo. But even still, there are CCD purists that are like, I gotta have that I have to have that charge coupled device sensor.
Yeah, I hear people say that all the time. Now I know what they mean.
You know what CMOS stands for?
No, I don't.
Complementary metal oxide semiconductor.
Fancy.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah.
Most modern cameras are CMOS.
Right. And CMOS sensors have gotten better.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot better. I mean, if you go look for an old CCD sensor, if it goes above like ISO 800, oh boy, you're in a world of hurt. Okay, so I want you to look at your show notes here, and you might have to like do some pinch to zoom in. But I want you to scroll down and look at the top of this camera. I have 2 photos in here of the. Geez, I keep forgetting the name of this thing. Of the Epson
RD1.
RD1.
Man,
it's all just
this
numbers.
Is like Fuji levels of dials.
Yeah, dude. Look. So you're looking at the top of this thing. You can't even like. You can't even tell from the image. On the far left there's another dial.
Oh, wow.
That's for going through the menus. We're not even talking about that one.
I'm seeing there's like a 50 and 28-35. I'm guessing that's like a focal length.
Basically, I want you to describe the top of this camera to me.
I mean, it looks like a Fuji camera. Like I'm seeing the shutter dial on the right. That's got, or no, that's that's
shutter speed.
Is that shutter speed or is that ISO?
It goes
it's shutter speed.
Yeah, so this one ISO caps out at 1600 on this camera, and shutter speed caps out at 2000.
Yeah,
so that's shutter speed.
Yeah, okay. And then there's a, I think that's exposure compensation. Is that what the one that the E is?
I mean, that's a good question. This is what I need you to zoom in on, Daniel. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this dial configuration.
I see it. I see the
I would
the
describe this as the dash of a car.
I mean,
an instrument cluster.
Right down to the fact that there's a fuel gauge on there.
Yes, there is.
I have never seen a camera with a gas tank level fuel gauge, but here it is.
So this camera shares the same sensor as a Nikon D100.
Interesting.
And the D100 sells for $50 these days. This camera, you'd be lucky if you find it for less than $2,000.
Wow. Why is it so high? Is it because it's CCD or something else?
I mean, the D100 has the same sensor, so it's not.
Oh,
that's part of the reason, but not totally. I think the main reason here is that instrument cluster you're looking at.
That is pretty cool. I mean, it's just like, this has more style than cameras do now.
Now, there's a picture below it of the back of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Anything stand out to you about that?
Well, you said this, I mean, it's a CCD, so it's a digital camera, but there's no screen.
That's a flippy screen, Daniel.
It looks like it's a full flip screen,
That's a true believer flippy screen, fully articulating.
Wow.
Doesn't shoot video, though. And it doesn't give you a live view. That's just for previewing pictures.
And that also looks like it has some sort of dial on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's like a logo.
Okay.
So all the settings that you need to change in this camera, you basically change with the levers and the dials. And it has a screen on it so you can look at your photos, but you're not really doing it because this is a rangefinder.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking through the glass, shooting your pictures. I want to talk about this instrument cluster, though. So
yeah, I need to know more about that. Like, what is this fuel gauge telling me? What kind of fuel?
The fuel gauge is literally the battery. Empty to full, and then it just moves.
Oh man, that's so good.
The outside of it, if you can see, it looks like there's an hour hand, like a large dial.
Yeah, there's a big one. Yeah.
That moves around.
Okay.
And I believe that is your ISO.
Oh, because I can see the biggest number I see is 500.
Mm-hmm.
But why? It goes down to 0?
I might have that wrong.
Yeah.
Let me double check my notes, though. Sorry. That's the amount of shots you have. This thing, there's 2 versions of this. And the first version only supported a 2 gigabyte SD card.
Oh, wow.
And so you could get roughly 500 shots on it.
And granted, 2 gigabytes was probably enormous back whenever this came out. When did this camera come out?
2005.
Okay. Yeah. 2 gigabytes was quite a bit of space back then.
And so that's literally your shot count. So you can see like how many shots you have left, and it's just ticking down from 500.
That's so cool.
And then that dial on the left is your white balance. And then the dial on the right it says NHR.
Yes.
That's normal, high, and raw.
Oh, it's like the quality level of your shots, basically.
Yep, exactly. It supports 3 lenses because it's a rangefinder. And that's that dial on the left.
That's the one, so 50, 28, 35.
Yeah, to the left of the hot shoe. There's a 50, a 28, and a 35.
Now, when you say it supports 3 lenses, is this an interchangeable lens?
Yes, it's an interchangeable
So when you
lens
switch
camera.
that thing, you're changing the eyepiece.
Right, because it's a rangefinder. You're changing the way the framing looks in the rangefinder.
Right, that makes sense. And then there is a hot shoe on there.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a hot shoe. It's
a hot shoe.
Okay.
Leica M mount. So you're shooting with Leica lenses. Got a CCD sensor on there. All these manual controls. Now, one more thing. I don't know if you can see here. There's a lever on this camera, like a film camera lever.
Where's that at?
It's just where the right thumb would be.
Okay.
You know, like an AE1 has that like lever. You crank that puppy.
Yep.
You know what that thing's for?
What's that for?
It's for cocking the shutter.
Why?
So that you can release the shutter, Daniel. Obviously.
This camera feels like it's just solidly on the edge between film and digital.
Like you're your CCD sensor uses more power than your CMOS sensor. How are you going to save that battery? Well, what if you don't have to use the battery for the shutter?
Is that a meaningful amount of the battery power?
This is the most tactily fun camera I have possibly ever seen.
I mean, I love that it has dials. Like, that just looks fun to use.
Yes, it does.
Like the dial for number of shots left. Can you imagine? That's so cool.
It's very cool, Daniel. And it shoots 6.1 megapixel images. And there you go. Like,
what is the
people love
sensor
this thing.
size on this thing?
It's APS-C.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, I found a comparison article on MPB's website where they compared this to an A7S2. And I'm not saying it doesn't hold its own.
I mean, for photos, the A7S2 is really not great. It's 12 megapixels.
12 megapixel sensor. I mean, you're not going to get that much more detail.
Yeah.
I feel like this is probably everything you need, Daniel. I mean, if you're just taking easy pictures and you want like a little rangefinder, and you want to go through the effort of like,
which, let's be honest, who doesn't want to go through that effort?
Yeah.
I think the biggest question is this or Fuji X100V, because I think you said this was like 2,000 if you can find it used.
Sure.
That's about the same price point as the X100V.
Same
sensor size.
You remember when the X Pro 3 came out and it's got that flippy screen that folds down and in default position
I
it's
remember
closed?
making fun of that. Yeah, it has that little postage stamp on the back where all you can see is like your film setting or something.
This camera was that before the X Pro 3 was cool.
This was like the X Pro Zero.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. That wasn't an innovative thing, Daniel. They were just bringing this back.
I think it's pretty cool. I'm not saying I'd spend $2,000 on one because, this isn't me, but I think it's cool.
I think it's super cool. And we need more cameras like this.
Yeah.
We need more like weird cameras.
I mean, I kind of feel that way about a lot of technology. Like, everything has gotten so safe, it's like it feels like you don't see as much innovation and revolutionary products because it's just easier and safer to come out with something that's similar to the previous stuff. Like, it's going to sell, people are going to like it. Why mess with the formula that works? But the downside of that is you don't get cameras with a fuel gauge instead of a battery meter.
That is the downside. So I was going deep on this, as you might expect.
As you already have, honestly.
Yeah. And the other thing that I came across was another CCD camera.
Okay.
That's medium format.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, why haven't I gone down the road? I mean, I've been talking about this whole film thing and what if I want to shoot medium format and what's the easiest way to do that? And for some reason, I haven't been looking at 2000, like year 2000 medium format cameras.
Do they exist?
Oh, yeah. I would like to present to you as the second camera in my series of Things Were Better When Things Were Worse, the Pentax 645D. Now, I know that you're very, very familiar with the Pentax 645 because I probably have talked about it on this podcast.
You've at least mentioned it in passing.
That is a medium format film camera that shoots 120 film, and the film that it shoots 6 centimeters by 4 centimeters, right? 645. That's the size of the thing. Like, actual size of the image is like 56 millimeters by 41, right? Slightly smaller because of the outline of the thing.
Okay.
The 645D is the digital version.
Interesting. Did you know that they had a digital version before now?
No, I didn't even know that Pentax made medium format digital sensor cameras.
Here we are.
Like, no idea. But yes, here we are. And this thing's like 40 megapixels.
Really? Wow.
And it's like I said, CCD sensor, but it's also a lie. This thing is 44 by 33 millimeters.
So it's not medium format? It's not a 645.
It's the same size as like a GFX 100.
Uh-huh.
It's the same size as current modern medium format digital cameras, but it is not a 645.
This is like whenever we started hearing about 5G, and then magically, like the next day, your phone said that it was 5GE, and you're like, what is that? And it was not 5G, but they made it sound like 5G.
It reminds me also of what was like the 2016 or 2017 year model of the Mustang, where it shipped with like a 5.0, but it was actually like 4.9 something, and people were mad because it wasn't actually 5 liters. And Ford said it's a branding thing. 5.0 is a branding, not the engine size. It's exactly what Pentax is doing here. 645 is a branding, not the sensor size.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm wondering though, maybe this is the answer. I've been like, how do I scan my film at 1:1 with an APS-C camera? I can't do it. What if I bought a medium format digital camera, but I buy an old one that would cost with a macro lens less than a scanner that can scan up to 6,000 pixels across?
Is that the case? Is it that cheap?
It's not that cheap.
I don't know how expensive a scanner that can scan 6,000 pixels across is.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I haven't found that scanner. I feel like those scanners are really expensive. Whereas this one, I could probably find a lens for like $1,000. I can find a used one of these for somewhere between $800 and $1,200.
So you're looking at like $2,000, $2,200 all in.
Yeah, say like $2,000. I could get like a circa 2003 medium format digital camera.
Yeah, you'd be scratching that medium format itch.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Daniel. And this thing's got a CCD sensor, maximum ISO of I think it's 1,000.
That's not very high.
Minimum ISO 200.
Man, you really got to nail it on your exposure there. You don't have a lot of breathing room.
Yeah, not too much. Not too much. Pretty cool though.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And when did that one come out?
This one came out, I think, in 2011, actually.
Oh, that's more recent than I would have expected, I think.
And it's very similar to the Hasselblad that also has the same size 40 megapixel sensor.
I'm guessing the Hasselblad's more expensive.
Depends on where you look.
Are you talking about like 5-finger discount here? Or that was a little suspicious.
I mean, it just depends on where you look. There's not a lot of these things around, but I do feel like there may be a future part of this podcast where I'm like, hey, Daniel, I've been looking more at like 2005 medium format cameras. And everyone's going to get tired of me talking about it.
Yep. That'll be the next film. But
yeah, so like this Pentax 645, we're looking at, I think I put this in the wrong spot. I was going to say 2,000 to 3,000 used. It is less than that. That price was for that Epson camera.
Okay.
I have my show notes out of order.
Gotta get it together, man.
Because I was looking into CCD sensors, and the way I formatted this was like, oh, here's what I'm going to do to Daniel. And I wish I'd remembered until this point, is I was going to take you down this path on the Epson, and then I was going to be like, and as an aside, and then we were going to go down a whole tangent on the 645, and then we were going to come back to the Epson.
It
was going to be very confusing.
I wouldn't have been able to follow that. I don't know if anybody else would have been able to follow it.
I was super excited about the concept.
Now you're doing a high concept podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So let me talk a little bit more about the framework. All right. That's the end of my segment.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's seems like there's a lot of cameras out there that are surprisingly capable for how old they are, and I'm always impressed that people still want to pay good money for those things.
There are certain cult cameras out there that this camera's 20 years old, and I get people who they're looking for like a M6 film camera or something, and they really want that for whatever reason, or the lenses, and there's like little cult followings about certain cameras or certain lenses, but I never expect that from digital cameras that came out between 2000 and 2010, because I feel like it was so new, and it was so, like cameras nowadays are so much better. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So much better. An entry level like Canon R100 is going to take way, way better pictures than whatever, high-end camera from 2000 is going to take.
Did you ever use any of those old digital cameras? I know you weren't really into photography back then, but I mean, did your family have anything like that? Or?
My dad shot with a Nikon D850 or something like that. And then I can never keep track of the model numbers. He had a couple Nikon digital cameras. And then my first digital camera was like a little Kodak point and shoot. But that was kind of most of my exposure to those cameras back then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the one that we had too well, but yeah, I mean, it just seemed to me like it was, it was the first digital cameras, and obviously there were immediate advantages to digital, like being able to see your pictures immediately and not having to pay for film, kind of like an electric car, where it's like suddenly you could get something that didn't have that ongoing
Right.
consumable cost, so there are advantages there, but I mean, yeah, they just weren't that good in terms of image quality. And I mean, even now, film still has some advantages over digital cameras in terms of like dynamic range and stuff. And so you can imagine like the first sensors weren't very good, but it's surprising to see that there's still a cult following for some of those things.
But it's funny in that, so for instance, if you're shooting on something that has 14, 15 stops of dynamic range and you're comparing to something that has maybe 12, the one with less dynamic range is going to be more contrasty out the box. You're going to have like deeper shadows and just more contrast in the picture.
That's a good point.
And for some people, they kind of want that. They are looking for a certain look or to recreate something straight out of camera that maybe takes a little more finessing to get now. And I feel like you can make anything look like anything nowadays with like 14-bit RAW files. But I guess some people are still trying to kind of get that look that they had before. And I think that's why you have things like this 645D or the Epson R1. Oh, hold on. I can't.
RD1.
I can't stay and remember the name of that camera. The Epson RD1. And it's, wow, this is really cool. I really like the image out of this. Nothing else is making that kind of image. They don't use this sensor technology anymore. And so you have people looking for these things.
And now you're one of them.
There's a YouTuber I follow. It's like Snap something. I can't remember. And the whole point of that guy's YouTube channel is old cameras. And he's like, check out this one. And he pulls out this insane looking camera. He's like, this came out in 2002 and it's got a 2 megapixel sensor on it, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like my shelf deserves more old cameras.
I was thinking that you could have been that YouTuber in some sort of parallel universe.
You know what? I probably could have. Should have done that instead of starting this podcast.
Yeah. Imagine where you'd be now.
Oh boy, probably the same thing.
Just with more old cameras.
Just more old cameras. Be a real problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what do I do with all those old cameras.
You figure something out.
All right, I got another camera to talk to you about.
Yeah, can we move into something that's like, this century, a little bit newer?
This was all this century, Daniel. I don't know what you're talking. We're talking like 2011, 2005. It's this century.
Yeah, that's true. This decade? How about that? This decade.
Did you know that you can build a Raspberry Pi camera?
I didn't know you could build one. I knew that they sold camera accessories for the Pi, but what do you mean by build?
So, yes, you can buy sensors for the camera sensors for the Raspberry Pi. They have this little global sensor one that's, a couple megapixels. They have a 12 megapixel one that's their high quality camera sensor, and that's like let's see if I can find it. It's a Sony IMX 477.
Okay,
which is
probably like a smartphone camera.
No, it's the high quality one is 1/2.3 or 1/1.3. So it's like a broadcast size sensor.
Oh, okay.
And cool. It's got like 14-bit, at the sensor, and you can do like 60 frames per second at 2K and this sort of thing.
Wow. Okay.
And so what the innovative people on the internet have done is there is now, you can go to your GitHub and you can do a pull down for a thing for the Raspberry Pi that makes it a cinema camera. So like you install this on your Raspberry Pi, and then you connect this sensor, and then you have a cinema camera.
So what do you mean? What is the software doing? Does it give you do you put a screen on it?
Right. It's a matter of what are you doing with the output from the sensor itself.
Okay.
And then, here are all my settings and here's my preview. You got to do all the software thing of here's the interface and here's all of your setting options and that sort of thing.
So you must have to add a screen to the Raspberry Pi as a preview or something.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're going to have to build it.
Okay.
You have to buy the sensor, you have to buy the Pi, and then you have to 3D print the case. And then you apply the screen, and then now you have a Raspberry Pi cinema camera.
Pretty cool. So what are the specs like on that thing?
Yeah, so let me go and find the sensor thing real quick. I had too many tabs open.
Too many tabs open, he says.
Okay, so this thing can basically do whatever that sensor can do. And so it can do 14-bit RAW internal. It can do, I think it's 60 frames per second at full resolution. And this is it's a 4K sensor. And so you're looking at, I think it says 4K, 2K. I don't have my ducks in an order.
So you could potentially do 2K raw, but you could do 4K at 60 frames per second.
Okay, yeah. So you can do like the full size of the sensor, which is at a 4:3 ratio. You can do 60 frames per second at 4K, or you can do like 2K 24, or like 1080 60, things along those lines. So like basic spec numbers, and you can download sample like DNG raw to your card.
Oh wow!
So and you can do the raw up to like the readout of the sensor, which is 14-bit. So you got 14-bit raw internal at 4K, Daniel.
That's pretty impressive. How much is this thing going to cost?
I mean, that's totally up to you. You're building it, Daniel. I mean, these sensors are like $50.
Okay,
and Raspberry Pi is like
100, maybe.
Sure. I mean, you could buy a Pi Zero, that sort of thing, and then it's whatever it costs for you to build the rest.
Yeah, because you get the screen too, but still, you're probably looking at like a couple $100 all in. Yeah,
maybe at most. I mean, you have to get lenses for it.
Yeah, what are people using as the lens mount?
So that sensor itself, and I am like digging for my notes, and all I did was include links. I'm a bad person. I'm a bad podcaster today, Daniel. Okay, there it is. It has a C/CS mount or an M12 mount for that high quality sensor, and so that C mount it's just like an old cinema mount basically, and it has like it's like 12-ish. The C mount has like a 12-ish millimeter, or is it the CS? One of those versions has like a 12-ish millimeter flange distance.
Okay.
And so you can basically adapt anything to that would still match the flange distance. So most of like your cinema camera style stuff, so you're going to do like EF or PL, those kind of things are going to be mounted to this just fine. Any of your old like film camera lenses, like you probably would put an M42 on this thing. Or, maybe like a K-series. You're probably not going to put a K-series lens on this if you have those. But an old like FD Canon lens. If you can find the right adapters, 12 millimeter could probably adapt up to L mount because that's 20 millimeters. So it just kind of depends. But you can adapt most lenses that you might be looking for. You just kind of have to figure out the way to get that on there. And it's not a huge sensor. We're talking like broadcast level stuff. You're not like APS-C or full frame or anything, but you're getting decent output. Yeah. You're getting raw internal, and you can just print this camera at home.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it'd be a fun project for sure.
Yeah, it would. I feel like you got to do this, Daniel.
Maybe you ought to do it.
Well, I feel like you're more equipped.
I've got the 3D printer, but you're gonna have to supply the super old cinema lens. How about that?
Yeah, I could do that. Find a way to adapt some like anamorphic to this.
Oh man,
I don't know if this Cine Pi, which is the camera build thing, I don't know if it has like anamorphic support in it or not.
Yeah.
But it's an open source project. If you could figure out how to do the D-squeeze, you could push that to the Git. Be pretty cool.
Man, that's neat though. It's cool that people are doing that.
Okay, sorry. I found the rest of my notes. It's 2K raw in Cinema DNG up to 50 frames per second. So not as well as advertised, but the sensor should be able to read that out. So I think that's a matter of like cooling and the performance of the Pi and less of what the sensor can do. So like maybe you could like, I don't know, overclock your Pi, push that up to a higher resolution. This is all just very cool. It's like 10-bit color and all this stuff. So, or 12-bit, but
it sounds like it's basically enabled by that camera sensor existing. Which makes me think that like maybe there'll be better versions of that in the future, and you could make this thing better.
I mean, they released one in 2020, and they released one in 2023.
Okay,
so this is like the better one.
Pretty cool.
And they have a global sensor version. You could make a little 1.6 megapixel global sensor camera. That might be a little crazy.
Yeah,
but this is all really cool.
Yeah,
and I feel like the main motivation to do this would be that you could build your own cinema camera.
I mean,
that records raw internal, and then Red would sue you.
You're right, they would. Only if you try to sell it, maybe.
Just post it online. Sell it for like a couple $100.
Are you saying it would be a badge of honor to be sued by Red?
Maybe. Could be fun.
Could be.
It's kind of like how Rode's being sued.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that last week or a week or two ago, I guess, about the patent drama with the Deity Theos, and we've learned more about it since then. So I threw Rode under the bus in that episode, and I kind of insinuated that I thought Rode was the one with the patent because they released that Wireless Pro. And
Yeah,
that,
you did.
That has the feature. And I was wrong. It was not Rode. So there's this other company called Zaxcom, and they're the ones that have the patent for this. And the patent is basically recording and transmitting wireless audio at the same time.
That's it.
Which sounds pretty vague to me.
So have they sued DJI?
I don't think they've sued DJI. At least I haven't heard about that. So I know they've sued Rode, some other company that was started with an L. Can't remember what that electronics or something like that. And they're also sued. I think they have already sued Tascam as well, because all these companies make products that record and transmit wireless audio at the same time.
It's not even like 32-bit. It's just anything.
No, it doesn't sound like it's 32-bit. It's just any kind of recording and transmitting at the same time.
That's hot garbage.
It really is. It's ridiculous. I mean, I've never even heard of this company.
It's so vague. Like how I feel like to have a reasonable patent, it's got to be like recording and transmitting at the same time using this proprietary technology that we've developed. But it's not. It's just like doing it at the same time.
I guess it's hard because, it seems like the definition of a patent should be like you are doing something in a novel way that, required you to research something and create something that didn't exist before. And, surely at some point in time, recording and transmitting wireless audio would have made sense for that because, back when computers were new, that would have been pretty novel. But it just feels like such a basic thing now that, like, how can you patent that? And they've had that patent since 2010. So patents in the U.S. last for 20 years. And that means that this patent doesn't expire until 2030.
That's super duper dumb.
It is.
And it's just not fair. Like I never even heard of Zaxcom before today.
Yeah, same here.
That is a company that is so pro that like it's totally outside my world. I was trying to figure out where can I go buy some like Zaxcom devices so I can simultaneously record and transmit at the same time, and I can be cool like these guys. And like you go to their website and they're like, look what was mixed on. Look what movie they used our devices to mix with, and it's like Oppenheimer. So,
okay, that level,
right? They're like, hundreds of millions of dollars, movie level, like studio level movie.
Okay,
and I'm like looking on their site for a device that what could I get from them that can record 32-bit internal, and can also transmit. And how do I even configure this? You can't buy it from B&H. You got to go to like Gotham Sound or something. This is not even from your consumer camera retailer people. And you can buy their little transmitter puck thing for its internal recording, and it does like a lot of different. It's very, very pro as far as look at all these different like frequency ranges you can transmit on and blah blah blah, like features on features.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $2,000.
Oh my gosh!
Just for the transmitter. And then
it's like 5 times the price of the Theos.
Yeah, but then you have to go buy the receiver,
right?
Because you have to buy one that's compatible for all of your transmitters that you have.
Sure.
And so the receiver is going to cost you another like $2,500.
That's ridiculous. It's clearly not the same market that Rode or Deity are going after with their products.
Oh, it's It's like is Zaxcom really losing market to Rode?
Yeah,
enough to sue them.
And I don't know how patent law works. Thankfully, that's not something I really care to learn a lot about. But I know with trademarks, you have to defend your trademark. We talked about that a few weeks ago with the Cinestill thing. It's like if you have a trademark, you have to sue people that are using that because otherwise, it's like squatters' rights. You lose the trademark. I don't know if patents work that way or not. I feel like they don't, but I don't know.
It's just if you go out and you buy like a Deity Theos or you buy a Rode Video Mic Pro, you're going to spend somewhere between whatever $500 and $1,000,
mm-hmm.
and you're going to get like two mics or 2 transmitters, 1 receiver,
right,
and all these things. If you wanted to go to Zaxcom and buy a larger, heavier, more power hungry version of that, where you have 2 transmitters and a receiver, you're like $6,500 in on this crazy pro solution.
It's ridiculous.
And I don't get it. Like, I get they have the patent, but they're not benefiting anybody.
Yeah.
By suing these other companies.
Yeah. It's just hurting all of us. I mean, I totally, knowing all this context, I totally understand Deity not supporting this feature in their product. Because, like, why would they want to get sued? You know, I mean, it's going to be, even if you win, it's going to be expensive in legal costs. So I get it. But that's pretty bad for them. And it's bad for us as consumers, because it's just like, they have to make their product worse. And we can't buy a product with all the features we want.
It's messed up.
It is.
I've thought about this a little bit, and I've realized what we should do.
Tell me, what should we do?
We just need to use 2 lavs.
What do you mean?
So you've watched like speeches and stuff, because you've mentioned this before. You're like, Lucas, why do they have 2 lavs on their shirt? This doesn't make any sense.
And the microphone thing is always like 5 times the size of the ones we use. But regardless, yes, they often have 2.
This is why. We can just use 2 lavs, and one can record internal and one can transmit to the camera. The problem is that the one that records internal has to be 32-bit. And the one that transmits to the camera, I guess, like, whatever, it's going to be fine. And so I don't know how we would get there, because we would have to buy like a Theos or something, and then that would have to be the local one. Can you remote trigger the recording?
I think you can, because the Theos supports they have a Sidus audio app, kind of like the Sidus Link app for Aperture. And I think you can control everything remotely. So I think you can wirelessly trigger it.
Because that's always the problem, is like, you don't want the person to have to deal with pressing the button.
Yep.
Now they're going to have to wear 2 audio packs. So
that's true.
They're going to have to run 2 microphones. But I feel like this is the answer. You know,
if you had to guarantee it, that would be a way to do it.
Zaxcom has pinned us in a corner, and we're just going to have to use 2 mics.
It's not the worst idea.
I'm just saying, we already have 2 cameras.
Yeah.
We can just put one of the things on one and one of the things on the other.
That's true.
Yep.
There would be no putting one on the other, because only one of them is transmitting.
Yeah, valid. Well, you got to like be able to hit the record button, right? So you have to have another hot shoe or something to mount the receiver on, even though it's not doing any receiving.
I don't know about that. It's crazy.
It's perfect. We could get rid of the boom and the shotgun.
Yeah.
And like, there we go. Problem solved.
I do think we're going to have to figure out what to do about that, because I don't know. It doesn't feel good to buy something that's 2.4 gigahertz after all the like interference problems we've seen.
So this is my problem, right? You have to buy the Theos and use that one as the transmitting one, but you still want the onboard one to be 32-bit. So I guess like you could use both Theos packs.
They do make body pack units that don't transmit at all and just have internal recording. Like Zoom makes one that's like $150.
I mean, we could just do that.
So you get that, and then you have your wireless transmitter, and hopefully you can use the wireless. Like hopefully that's because it's just easier if you don't have to grab this other recording. So hopefully you can use that. But if that fails, you have a second lav as a backup. So you could do that. More annoying if you've got your, if your talent is not a professional on camera person, then you're like, can you run this lav? Also, can you run this other lav?
It's perfect. This is the perfect solution. We've solved it until 2030.
Yeah. But in 2030, find that Theos, and it's going to be great.
Theos Mark IV, or whatever it is.
Oh, man. What a mess.
Okay, 38 minutes.
Yep.
Are you ready for the main topic?
I think so. Let's take a break, and then we'll get into that one. All right, Lucas.
Okay, so
we've gotten pretty deep in this show, and you're introducing the main topic, which, is not unusual for us. I feel like this happens a lot.
It does happen a lot,
and here we are.
And I this is our year end, man. We're building up to it, and what's the first of 3 episodes, right? So we're doing personally the best camera gear purchase this year, or favorite camera gear this year, and then tech. And then we'll do a little tech corner, even though this isn't a tech podcast.
It's kind of a tech podcast. Just like a little bit.
Like a little bit.
Yeah.
man, if I knew more about like semiconductors, it would be so much more of a tech podcast because we would have spent a while on CCD sensors.
Yes.
And I would have been talking. Anyways, that would have been horrible. Everyone, we just lost listeners. But after that, we're going to do a little like a year in review for camera companies.
Yeah, that's going to be next week.
That'll be the next episode.
Yeah.
And then the big one, camera of the year 2023.
Oh, man. Really need to prepare for that one.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about that.
I might have to like take a day off work so I can just really, I need to travel out of town, like go to a remote location for a while to just really dwell on that and think about that and come up with the...
isolate yourself and just really focus.
Yeah.
Focus on the cameras.
Yeah. This topic, on the other hand, I'm definitely just shooting from the hip on this one.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I mean, I personally gave it a lot of thought because I care about our listeners, unlike you. That's fine. Okay, so...
Where are we starting?
This is our best of discussion. We're going to go through top 5 for each category. There's 2 categories, which is tech and cameras.
Okay.
And we're going to go through best camera purchases of 2023 and best tech purchases of 2023. I figure we TikTok this.
Sure.
You give me your 5, I'll give you my 5.
Okay.
Not like all 5, but like 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3. Like that. And we'll end at number 1.
Okay.
So let's start with cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And then people can drop off for the tech thing unless they really care about that.
Okay.
Just kidding. They have to stick around the whole time.
Yep.
Okay, Daniel. Give me your number 5 camera purchase of 2023.
All right. I think I'm going to go with the Zhiyun Molus X100. So that's a light that I purchased earlier this year, maybe in like the June, July. I think it was in July.
That's the one that's the size of like it's smaller than a VHS tape.
Yes. It's a little bit bigger than like a modern smartphone.
Yeah. But thicker.
Yeah. And it's a 100-watt light, and it comes with a portable battery and has a Bowens mount, so you can mount normal modifiers on it. And yeah, I got that in July or so to have an extra light for some of the shoots we do, and it's been great. I like being able to take it with me. It doesn't take up much space. The area where I've really used it a lot, though, is just around the house. So if I need to set up and do some photos of like a product, or if I just wanted to shoot a quick video, it's really small and compact. And if I want, I can use the little battery that it comes with. It's a USB-C battery. And so like I potentially don't even have to run a power cable for it. And it's, I'd say it's not the best light I've used. Like, when we're doing an interview setup, we're still using like your VL150, like big light as our main key light. But It's just been a really solid like secondary light. And especially for that around the house, like I just need to pop up a quick setup. It's been great for that.
It has decent CRI and color accuracy, and we haven't had any issues with it being too different from our other lights whenever we've mixed lights.
That's right. It's been reliable too. I've never had it cut out while I'm using it, or, not turn on, or any weird behavior like that. So it's been great.
It sounds to me like you're using this light all the time around the house. And I'm wondering if instead of like putting it away, if you had a rolly stand and you just had this light on a rolly stand, like you could plug it in every so often when you need to charge it. Man, you just roll this puppy around with you.
Perfect. Yeah. I used to keep a light set up, and now I don't, just because I don't shoot as much around the house as I used to. But if I did, it would definitely be with this light. You
could get like a shoulder rig, like it sits on your shoulder, and like you can like holds the light over your head, and then you could just like position it.
I don't know about that. It's going a bit far.
Okay,
it's pretty cool.
So I put 7 things on my top 5 list here.
Classic.
And I would like to say that I have purchased an embarrassing number of lenses this year.
I definitely think you should be embarrassed, but I don't know if you're actually embarrassed.
And so I just want to note that I bought an 80mm macro, and it's not even making my top 5 for camera gear. So
classic.
What did make my top 5 was a C stand.
I think that's a badge of honor, though.
I somehow got this far. We've been doing photo video stuff since like what, 2017?
Something like that,
whatever. And I have somehow gotten this far without a C stand. The number of times that I have in poor decision making rigged up like a mic stand and tried to attach a camera to it and do like a top down.
Shameful.
Yeah, it's horrible. I've gotten way too far with that one, And I finally bought one before because we've done like, 5 music videos this year or something?
Yeah.
And so before that first one, I bought a lantern and I bought a C-stand. And oh boy, that C-stand has been great.
Yeah.
It's like, they're expensive. I mean, they're like $130, $150, depending on what you get, $200 for a C-stand. But you're going to buy it, and that thing's never going to break, probably. And like, they're just, like, you need them. You need them all the time. Like, you can't really ever have enough C-stands, especially if you're shooting video. And I don't know how I lived with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of on a related note, I didn't buy it this year, but I have a heavy duty light stand that's like substantially larger and stronger than like the little light stand that you think of when I say light stand.
Right.
And I use that more than the C-stand because it's like one piece. It's very lightweight. I can easily set it up. And I mean, it doesn't do all the same things a C-stand does, but if I need to put a 48-inch softbox up, like I can use that thing and feel a lot more confident in it. And just in general, having good grip gear like that is like, it's not fun to buy, but it's really helpful to have.
Yeah, it's not exciting. It's not glamorous, but having good grip stuff, having good stands just is so important.
Yeah.
And like, if you ever have to put up a scrim or whatever, boy, you're going to need a C-stand. You're going to need maybe multiple and gaff tape. Boy, you didn't put gaff tape on your list, Daniel.
I should have.
That would have been really funny. Number 1, roll of gaff tape. It's actually my number 1 through 5. We've gone through so many rolls. All right, what's your number 4 here?
My number 4 is the Angler softbox that I bought a while back. So I know I covered that on this show when I got it. Again, probably like in the August timeframe. So I've had it for a few months now, but I spent like $130 on a softbox.
Oh, I do remember this episode. This one was when you're like, Lucas, I've done a thing and I've spent too much money on a softbox, and I'm wondering if it's actually $100 better or whatever.
Yep. And I still wasn't sure when we talked about it, but I am here to report after a few months, I do think it was worth spending that much money on a softbox.
Okay, what's the difference maker? Like, why is this so much better than the Amazon Basics softbox?
So there's a couple of things I really like about it. One is that I didn't have to assemble it. So all the other soft boxes that we've both gotten, when you get it in the mail, you have to run those stupid little wires through the soft box and get it all set up just right. And that process is annoying. I didn't have to do that on this one. It came assembled. So like already predisposed to like it, but it's super easy to set up. It snaps open really easily, tears down really easily. That whole process feels like really robust, and it's a lot easier to do than other soft boxes I've used. And kind of along with that, the case is just a lot better. So it comes with the same kind of soft case that you get with soft boxes. But one thing that's different about this one is it has a zipper that goes all the way down the side. So instead of having to shove it in the end and like cram it in there, you can just unzip this thing like all the way down the side and just nicely set it in there. And all that stuff like sounds kind of silly. And, if you don't need to like quickly set up a softbox, like if your setup is permanent in a studio somewhere, then all this sounds really dumb. And like, you should probably just go buy like the cheapest thing you can get. But when you're doing stuff where you've got to like set that up and you have people waiting on you and you're trying to do it quickly and you want to look professional, like it feels worth it to me because it's so much nicer and easier to use than all the other softboxes I've had.
Now I'm wondering if instead of buying a fancy softbox, if one should just buy a better bag.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? Like that's one easy way to improve it. Because one problem you have with yours is it's like there's no way to win, right? But like when you push it into the bag, it's either going to pull those metal poles out of the softbox soft material or push them further into it. But
like the spokes are going to come out of the sockets.
Yes. But it doesn't matter. Like you might say like, well, I'm going to push it in, front first. That doesn't happen. But then the problem is when you pull it out, that's going to happen, and vice versa. So like that's one of the problems with those. I
mean, I feel like what I'm coming away from this though is that I should just buy a new bag, one that I can set in horizontally, and then maybe I don't have to worry about it.
It'd be a step up. It'd be an improvement.
I feel like the softbox that I have opens up okay. Like you kind of have to, you have to open up the side, like Velcro away the side a little bit and reach in, and you have to do this umbrella thing.
Yeah.
Make sure like you align the piece with the center rod and it pops open.
What do you think about the part where you open it up and you have like 4 of the spokes poking out through the softbox material?
Oh, I just
what do you
hate
think about that part?
It's just the worst. It looks unprofessional. I don't want to fix it.
You don't want to like sew your softbox back?
Yeah, jeez. Oh my God. I have, man. Ugh.
I don't know. I get that the one I got was a luxury, but I'm happy I got it.
It doesn't have a center rod.
That's right.
Which is a nice thing.
Well, and that was one of the things I was interested in because theoretically that should give you more light transmission.
Sure. Yeah. Mo light, mo better.
Yeah.
Not going to get weird shadows or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had that problem, but maybe I do and I just don't know it.
Yeah. Maybe.
I'm not looking close enough.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good. I like weird top 2 here. You got a light and a softbox.
Yeah. Well, these are my bottom 2, right? That's
right.
My
Sorry,
fifth and my fourth.
bottom 2. I'm also going to put a light on here. I bought an Amaran COB 60X.
Yeah, you did. I feel you were so excited about that light when it came out, and it took you a long time to actually buy one.
I love that little light. It's so cute and it's so tiny, and I use it as a hair light and edge light. But it's a nice little effect light if you want to like fake some lighting or try to hide a light down here and do some like uplighting on something or accent. And it's like,
yep.
I think I bought the bicolor one instead of the color, like full color, but you can get a full RGB one.
I don't think maybe you can now. You couldn't when they came out.
Yeah, I think there is a colored one, but I feel like a lot of what makes this light really cool has been supplanted by a lot of what's Zhiyun's been coming out with. And with their like tiny little, even smaller 60 watt lights. And then they have these interesting new like colored lights with the barn doors that we haven't even talked about yet. And so I feel like what made this light awesome has been supplanted by even more awesome versions of it.
Yeah, maybe
But I still love this tiny little baby light that if I needed to, I could put the whole light kit in my backpack with like, I could do a whole interview kit in my backpack. And part of that is because this little tiny baby light that can do 60 watts is awesome. Battery power, put a V-mount on it. Just great.
One thing I think it does have in its favor is that because it's made by Aperture, it supports the Aperture side as link cap. And so if you have Aperture MCs or the Aperture tube light or bigger Aperture lights, like you can control all of it from the same app, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And nice. I like it. I also like whenever we talked about it way earlier this year or last year, I can't remember, we've done so many episodes of the podcast, and there was a bit where I was trying to get you to answer if it was bigger or smaller than a number of items.
I remember that.
Oh boy, we should bring that segment back.
Yeah.
Is it bigger or smaller than an Amaran 60X?
It's bigger or smaller than a bread box.
Yep.
Even though nobody knows what a bread box is.
Smaller.
Nice. All right. My next one is an unconventional choice because it's not really camera gear, but my best camera related purchase, one of them, top 3, I guess, is the software Isotope RX.
You rebel.
So this is a program that lets you clean up audio. It's not, it has some like EQ and compressor and like audio mixing things in it, but I don't ever use those. And really the main purpose of it, I think, is to repair audio. So things like removing noise, removing mouth clicking sounds, removing breaths, reverb, stuff like that. It's to take existing stuff and clean it up. And I actually, the motivating thing for me to get that software was actually this podcast, because you and I talk for an hour, and in an hour of talking, you make a lot of like weird noises with your mouth and stuff.
How dare you?
Yeah, mostly you. It's about 90% you. I don't do that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But it's also because you talk like 90% of the time on this podcast. And I got that software because, I got tired of cleaning all that up myself. And now I have something where I can just put that in and run it through there, and it takes out a lot of problems. And so it's nice for the podcast, but I've actually started using it when we do interviews as well, because, when we interview somebody, especially the people we're interviewing, aren't professional voiceover artists. And so, well, there was one guy, but most of them,
there was that one guy.
Most of them have not been professional voiceover artists. And so, people, aren't used to talking into a microphone. And so you get some weird effects. We've also had to record in non-ideal situations. So sometimes there's a lot of background noise because like somebody's refrigerator's like, in the room or something.
Sure. It has a software firmware update.
Yeah, probably. And so
fan spins up.
It's been really nice having something that we can run that stuff through and know we're going to get a better result. And it's super easy to use, and I feel like it improves our production value.
That's good. And then you forced me to buy it.
Yeah.
Because I needed it too. And yeah, no, the software is really capable. I'm not as adept at editing audio as some people on this podcast. Yeah. And even I can use it.
So easy, even I can use it.
It's really good.
Yeah. Worth it.
All right. My number 3 here. We're getting into lens territory.
Oh, no.
I had to go back and look. I'm like, did I really? Oh, jeez. The XF23 1.4.
Okay, I'm also surprised you bought that this year, because what a year it's been. If you've already bought that, and that, and I mean, there's been so much since then, Lucas.
It's been a lot. I had to go back and see if I had rebought the 16 mil this year, and I didn't. That was in December.
Oh, close. Close. Now, I'm kind of surprised to see this as number 3, though, because whenever you did your ranking of the Fuji lenses, I think the 23 was number 1.
It was number 1, yeah.
Yeah, so why is it 3 on here?
It's my number 1 lens, but it's not my number 3 camera purchase of the year. I don't know why, Daniel. There's like so many reasons. I think that maybe that one you had to like trick me into bbuying. I was like, oh man, it's a good deal.
I did kind of trick you into buying it.
And you're like, Lucas, you should totally buy it because you're gonna regret it if you don't, or something. I just said some incantation of words that then had me at the counter at the camera store buying another lens.
Yep.
You enabler.
Yep.
I
do remember that now.
I feel like I've talked about it so much. I've been really happy with it. And I like old lenses, as previously noted in our earlier segment.
Mm-hmm. And that is an older lens.
Yeah, the other earlier segment. So
it has more character to it.
Yeah, it's one of the original, man. I'm working on checking all the boxes. I'm gonna get all of those clutch lenses that Fuji makes, and I'm gonna be a completist.
You're on your way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've talked about that lens so much that I'm just gonna go ahead and move on here.
Yeah, please do.
All right, my number 2 is going to be the new camera monitor I bought this year. So
okay,
yeah. So you and I have both had a small HD focus for quite a while.
Yeah,
I think probably got that in like 2019 maybe time frame, something like that. And it was a good monitor. I think it was very good when it came out, but I got kind of tired of the low resolution.
Yeah, it's like 720p or something.
Mm-hmm.
480i.
I also got tired of the stupid cable it uses that isn't a normal HDMI cable.
I do not understand that decision. It's the worst thing. Not only is it micro HDMI, which, God forbid, it has these like freaking tunnel thing that they devised so that you have to use like their cable in like the most hardware lock-in way possible. And it's not like, I mean, like, sure, whatever. You're like, okay, I'll use your freaking cable.
But their cable's terrible.
It's not a good cable. But I've already gone through like one of them. The one that I have is about, I'm like, I feel like it's going to break because it's the size of like a spaghetti noodle.
Yep.
They're smaller.
Yep.
And like it always phrases the stupid corner. I hate that cable so much.
Yep.
I just like, what do I do?
And it's not cheap. Like buying a new one's like $15, $20, something like that.
It's not to get you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't want to keep buying these cables. Instead of buying 10 more of these cables, I'm just going to buy a new monitor.
There you go.
So that's what I did. I got the Portkeys PT6. I probably talked about it on an episode of this podcast, but
you did.
My top reasons I like it: regular HDMI cable. It has a power input on it, so if you want to power it from a camera rig, you can do that without a dummy battery. You just plug into the little power jack on it. And my top thing that I like about it is that you can turn on focus peaking for only a portion of the screen. So one of the things that I hate about using camera monitors is if you turn focus peaking on, all of a sudden all your UI elements, like your shutter speed and all that stuff on your camera display get outlined like as if it's focus peaked, and it makes them all super hard to read and super annoying.
If the people out there who are listening to this, 90% of them all shoot Sony.
That's true.
And
like, what's focus peaking? Why do you need that?
They're not that bad. Those new Sony cameras, they moved all the display icons out of the video feed whenever you're in video mode, because you're looking at a 4x3x2 screen. And so you're 16 by 9 on it because
Yep.
they don't shoot open gate.
Yep.
So why would they? And so they just put everything above and below, and they don't have
Yeah.
that problem.
Well, no, they would on a normal monitor, they would still have that problem
Oh, really?
because
Because the monitor doesn't know.
the monitor doesn't know. The monitor is getting an HDMI feed, and so it's just going to say, "Well, this is my display, so let's focus peak all of it." And so you'd have all your things outlined in green or red or whatever.
Sure.
It's really annoying. What's cool about these Sportkeys monitors is you can actually configure that focus peaking to say only do it in this smaller rectangle inside the image, and so you can cut out all of that stuff and only focus peak on your actual video, which is really nice.
I like that it's basically the size of like a plus or a max size phone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the bezels are a lot smaller.
It's good. It's really sleek. I can't say there's no way for me to express how jealous I am when I look at your camera rig and I see that little squiggly condor blue cable just with a full size HDMI port.
Yep. And it wasn't even that expensive. That monitor was like $170, which is cheaper than we paid for the small HD.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good
Yeah.
monitor.
That was my second choice.
Okay, cool. Well, my second choice is another lens.
You don't say. Which one is it this time?
That's the 56 1.2.
You finally got one that is it that was your white whale, I feel like. You had to try so many copies to get a
Oh my
good one.
gosh. I couldn't buy another used one. Like I had that whole experience. And I'm like, that's it. I can't never buy a used one version of this lens. And like, I don't want to buy a new one because it's like, I really want that lens, but it didn't totally fit in all the stuff that we do. And I could really justify, I'm like, I'm not going to buy a new version of this thing. But then when they came out with the new 56, it's like weather sealed and it's just a better lens all the way around, like better optically, closer focusing distance. I mentioned weather sealing. The new 56 1.2 is so much better, than the old 56 1.2.
Yep.
The 56, like the old one went on like fire sale. I got this thing for like $500 or cheaper new.
Yeah. And so buying it new, you were confident that you weren't going to have the weird issues that you had on well, you weren't confident, but you were more confident.
Yeah, I was like, if it's brand new, I mean,
Yeah.
it's technically under warranty. I remember when I bought this thing from B&H and then I went back to check the listing, sold out. And so I'm confident that I got the last one.
The last old 56.
Yep, it's mine.
And you're happy with it.
Yep, number 2 on my list.
It's great as a B angle for interviews.
It's because we can shoot those at 1.4 a little farther away. Like it's not so much that we're getting like half the person's face in focus. We're getting their whole head in focus.
Yeah.
But the creaminess and the fall off and the sharpness that you get out of that lens is so different than the way we're shooting the A-roll angle, because usually we're shooting that at like f4 at 5.6, so it's it's deep enough with a little bit of fall off on the back, but like you see the whole person, that sort of thing. And so because we have this really fast telephoto, it's like we get this totally different. And it's not only like, okay, we're 30 degrees off, and so when we cut it, it's not going to look weird. And now it even has a different look to it, and I feel like it blends together really nicely.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a great lens.
It is a great lens, Daniel.
Glad you finally got a good one.
All right, hit me with your number one.
All right, my number one is my XH2S cage setup and battery. So I kind of combine this because it feels like one. Like I basically bought all this stuff around the same time.
Yeah, you were like Caleb piking it for a little while there.
Yeah.
Just really, well, how can I optimize my cage setup?
I've got so many parts that I didn't use for that. But so I got a V-mount battery, finally took that plunge, and ended up getting a V-mount plate that has a bunch of outputs on it. And I built up a cool little XH2S camera rig that I feel like solved most of my problems with using the XH2S for video. So I wanted something where I could easily remove the camera when I wasn't, in rig mode, because I still use it for photos and stuff. But whenever I had it in the rig mode, I wanted it to be, powered with a larger battery and have everything be really self-contained. And my biggest thing was I wanted to be able to fit it all in like one bag, so I could just throw it in a bag, take it out when I get to the shoot, be ready to go. And I managed to do that. So I have a cool little, like very compact little rig that has a V-mount battery in the back. I have an Arca Swiss quick release on it, so I can pop the XH2S out really easily.
Yeah.
And that monitor sits kind of on top of it. And I put a monitor mount, like a rig monitor mount sideways on it, so that it basically acts like a flippy screen on a camera. Like it tilts in the exact same way as like a fully articulating
you
screen.
fold it out, and then you can do all the articulation on it.
Yeah.
That works pretty well.
It does work really well, and it just feels really intuitive to use because like we're all used to using a camera that has that, and like you can even flip it around to the front if you're filming yourself.
And it has the big advantage of you can rotate that thing down. I mean, we've all used top handles or kind of forward-facing handles, which is a pretty common place to stick it. But if you lift the camera in the air, you can't really see it. But with your monitor mounting on the side, you can turn it down.
And that was a big thing for me too, because a lot of times shooting events, I'm not a particularly tall person, and so a lot of times I hold the camera up in the air and film, from a slightly higher perspective. And so it's really nice with this that I can tilt that screen down and be able to see what I'm filming. So, that's really happy with that whole setup. I feel like I finally cracked it. Like you spend all this time trying to get the rig just the way you want, and I've got something now where when I use it, I'm not immediately thinking like, what do I want to add to this? It feels right.
It's good. It's good. I'm surprised that your rig conversation or your list didn't include your doctor bag.
Yeah, and I thought about mentioning it in the rig discussion because the doctor bag was kind of like part of that whole setup where I wanted to be able to build the rig at home, and then when I show up at the shoot, I can just pull out and go. Like it's kind of what I was saying about the softbox earlier, where it's like I don't
deploy.
I just want to be ready. I don't want the person like waiting on me. Like I don't ever want to be the hold up, and getting stuff done. And so
you don't want to be that guy that's balancing the gimbal. Everyone's waiting.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the doctor bag's been really nice. I feel like that's something that maybe a lot of people don't know about. Like they don't even know you can buy a product like that. But yeah, that's been a cool improvement as well.
It's good. It's good.
Yep.
All right. Here's my number one.
Your number one lens or your number one piece of camera gear?
Yes. Well, no, because we already established my number one lens was that 23 1.4. My number one camera purchase of this year is the 50 to 140 XF lens.
You just got that too.
Yeah, that's what
it's already up there.
That one's still recent, and I feel like that one has been a long time coming.
Yeah,
I feel like
long lens. It was a long time coming.
I mean, I feel like anyone who's done photography long enough would say, if you could get your 70 to 200 2.8, like that lens is going to be like bread and butter for so many things.
Yeah,
it's such a good portrait lens, it's such a good zoom, and it's a really useful focal length that is a staple for so many people. But it's also just weirdly out of reach for a lot of people because you're shooting on like Sony or Canon or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. Like we haven't even talked about the new Sigma 70-200 for Sony.
Yeah,
that's like really light and like a fantastic lens. But you're going to spend $2,000, $3,000 on a good 70-200 2.8 zoom. And I just feel like it's always like, oh, I'm going to get one of those one day.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to get like, one of these days I'll get my telephoto zoom and then I'll be a real photographer or whatever. And I've never wanted to like take the plunge to buy it. And I finally found a good deal and got one this year. And I feel like my photo kit is complete because I've been drooling over this lens for like years, and I keep buying all these other lenses, and I'm like, I could do this, and I'll get the 50 to 140 later. I'll borrow Daniel's 50 to 140. I don't need one of my own.
Yep.
And here we are. I finally got it. My lens ecosystem is complete, except not really, because I'm probably still gonna buy more lenses. And it's just this is great.
Do you regret not buying that one sooner?
I don't know how I would have gotten here otherwise. Like every time I've purchased a lens, it's always been for one reason or another. And I don't want to have spent, $1,100 on that lens. I love Fuji lenses because they're so cheap. I'm talking about like a $1,000 lens.
Yeah.
And it's like the full frame equivalent of this for anybody else. So like, well, geez, it's going to cost $2,500, and that's a good deal if I bought one for my camera.
Yep.
So I don't know, what is Lucas even complaining about over here? You keep buying these cheap lenses. But I don't know. I just like maybe that instead of the 80 macro, possibly. Those are roughly the same price, but I felt like I needed something in that 80, and it was trying to swap out to replace my Viltrox, which I forgot to mention. I did that whole list last week.
Yep.
And I included a Sigma lens, and I didn't include my Viltrox 85 1.8. But it was a Fuji lens list. And so the Sigma either shouldn't have been in there, or the Viltrox should have been in there, and it should have been a top 11.
Oh, man.
And so I was like, oh, shoot. I did it wrong.
Did it wrong.
So I would slot that Viltrox in above the 17 to 70 at number 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to go back and listen to that episode to remember what that whole list was, that's where the 85 1.8 would go.
Oh, okay.
That was a pretty good lens.
But it's not the crown jewel of your collection like the 50 to 140.
No, it's not. So, well, and like 50 to 140 feels like it could legitimately replace a lot of things I have. Like maybe if I bought that instead of the 80 and the 5612, that would have easily covered that, and I probably would have been happier. But I feel like each of those kind of serves its own purpose.
Yeah, I mean now you have it, so that's it's an advantage.
Yeah, so there we go. That's my number 1. Pumped about it.
Yeah, good list.
All right. Dana, we don't even have time to get into the tech stuff, which is appropriate because this isn't a tech podcast.
I kind of think we should get into the tech stuff, but not talk about them in the same detail that we just talked about the camera things.
Lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I mean, if you have a little bit of editorializing, that's fine. But like, we don't need to go like way.
All right.
So I'll start. And I only have 4 actually.
Okay.
So my number 4 is my new iPhone. We've talked about that at length on this podcast. So we're not going to get way into it, but short version, I just think it's really cool that I have a phone that is good enough to use as a B or C angle for real work.
We definitely subbed that into a project recently, and you text the person who they're like, "Did you notice that was the iPhone angle in there?" And,
he had no idea.
No idea.
Yep. So that was the test to me. Like he couldn't tell. He does videos. So
yep.
And that's
that was
what
really,
I wanted.
Really satisfying.
Yeah.
So happy about that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, do I only have 4 on my list too? It looks like I only have 4. I must have forgotten my 5th one. This isn't even camera related, but I got a new watch.
Got a new watch?
Yeah. Cause I'm going to be an athletic person, and I got a Phoenix 7, and it's the best thing ever.
And who makes that?
It's Garmin.
Okay.
Yep. And that replaced my other Garmin that was like 5 years old. And I can now have a timer on my wrist, and I know that we've been going for 1 hour and 11 minutes.
Indeed we have.
And there's no other way for me to have known that without having bought that watch. It has solar power, Daniel. I can stick my hand out the window. Battery.
How long does it last on a charge?
It's supposed to last, like, I think 18 days. And then the solar power is supposed to, if you can get like enough solar energy, it's supposed to push that up to like 22 days.
What if you don't see the sun in 18 days?
Well, then you only get 18 days of battery. So
the people in Alaska that are listening to this, take note. You're only going to get 18 days of life.
Oh man, I can't like check my battery at the same time as recording this. No, I have to like stop it.
Oh my gosh, really?
What kind of watch is this? You know what? I'm taking it back. This is the worst. So I'm at 43%, and that is 8 days later. So
pretty good.
I should be able to make it another 7 days.
Yeah. Just make sure you get some sunlight in there. That'll help.
Maybe I will.
All right. My next one, by the way, so I got a lot of Apple products on here. I feel like I'm not as much of an Apple fanboy as this list makes it seem. It just so happens that I bought a lot of Apple stuff this year.
This was your upgrade year, right? I haven't bought any Apple products for like 4 years, and now I have to replace them all.
Pretty much. So my next one is actually HomePod Minis, which is a weird one to have, but I was actually, in terms of like improvements to my life, I put this higher than the iPhone because I used to have Amazon devices, Amazon Echoes.
Yep.
And I just kind of got tired of Amazon listening to everything I said. And
they
always have these notifications. They're like, did you know you can give Amazon money in this other way? And I got really tired of that.
So annoying.
Yeah. And so I got rid of all those and replaced them with a few HomePod Minis. And now I use Apple's voice assistant instead. And I think my review after a while of using it is, and it's definitely not as good as, it's not as good at like, answering questions and stuff as the Google one or the Amazon one. I'm trying not to say their names.
Sure.
But, for things like smart home control, turning lights on, asking about the weather, setting timers, it's just fine. There's no problems with it. It works as well as the other ones for those purposes. And that's really all I need those things for. I don't actually need to ask it to define words for me and stuff. And I guess I just trust Apple a little bit more than those companies to not abuse my data. So happy with that.
Yeah, no, I also made that decision this year. I didn't go buy HomePods, but I had, I think, like 3 Google Homes and like 2 Echoes. I've never purchased one.
They just happen to.
Like white elephant things or gifts or came free with whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they'll do anything to get things in your home.
Well, yeah, because they're benefiting from it.
Yeah.
And that should be suspicious to you. Like if you don't have to pay for it, like
little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't pay for it, like what's the product or something, like you're the product. Anyways, I bought egg timers. I bought 2 egg timers for my kitchen, and one is like an old twisty one that's kind of fun. My spouse wanted that one instead of a different. Anyways, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a little annoying, but it's fine. But then I bought one that's a cube, and it has 5 sides and then a side that's down, and each side is a number, like 10, 30, 5, and you flip that side up and it starts counting.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so so much easier than being like, Alexa, set a timer for blah 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 blah. I just go floop, and then I have a 5-minute timer going, and I'm like, this is just so much easier, and I'm happy.
I just think it's funny that, I feel like out of our friend group and the people we know, you and I are probably like 2 of the most like, tech aware people.
I mean, we do have a camera podcast.
We have a camera podcast. And like, I don't know. I feel like you and I are like more in that world than a lot of people. And I think it's interesting that like, I know a lot of people with those devices, a lot of people with those devices, and then we're over here like wanting to like simplify and get away from that stuff. It's interesting.
It hasn't been a problem. I use the little control center in my phone to change the stupid things, and I have a few buttons to change my hue lights, and it's been fine.
Yeah.
I like
it.
I'm not needing to shout for things. The only thing that I can't do is like start music with my voice to the Sonos, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, stuff like that. It's just like I've gotten used to workflows where I pull out my phone and use my phone to do it.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
You just kind of adapt to it. And I don't need Amazon or Google just listening to me all the time.
Yeah. Agreed.
So
right,
my number 3, I guess, because I also only have 4 somehow, was I'm surprised this didn't make it higher. It's my iPad Pro.
Honestly, I was expecting this to be the top one for you.
Man, I've talked about it before, but I made a decision in like 2012, 13, 14, something like that. I gave it a lot of thought, and I was like, you got your e-readers and your tablets and your laptops and your phones, and back then we were still saying phablet, so large phone, and I was like, man, these all have weird overlaps in functionality.
Yeah.
And like you could be some amalgamation. Like you could have a desktop computer and an iPad and a small phone, or maybe you have like a big phone that's your e-reader and your tablet, and then you have a laptop computer. And I don't need all these devices. I don't need an e-reader and a tablet and a laptop and a phone, which I all have now, which is really frustrating.
I was about to say, so fast forward to 2023.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm going to be a phone laptop person, and that's just going to be my life. And I did that for 10 years, right? And so I owned an iPad Mini 2, and I didn't buy another iPad until I bought my iPad Pro 11 with the M2 in it this year.
Big upgrade from that.
Yeah, and holy cow, have iPads gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and you seem to use it a lot more than you thought you would.
So much more. I don't browse like the internet or whatever on my phone anymore. Like I'm just going to use my iPad, and because I'm still in the Apple ecosystem for now, it's like I can do all of the things that I would on my phone on my iPad. Like I can text people, and I don't make phone calls because I'm not a monster, but no one makes phone calls anywhere anyways.
Yeah, you can film concerts.
Yeah, dude, I'm just holding that thing up and taking pictures. I'm not doing that because see previous, not a monster. But like everything else, right? And so I'll connect to my headphones and play podcasts and watch YouTube and like surf the internet, and I'll use it to like take notes and like draw things and sketch, and oh my gosh, it's great. Like it's replaced all of my casual computer using for my computer. And I'm shocked at how much use I got out of it. For the longest time, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with an iPad. And it turns out I'm going to start reading comic books.
Apparently.
Yeah, it's great. Like borderline replaces my Kindle, but I still prefer the e-reader for reading. And I think that the e-reader as a purpose-built device for reading, I think there's still room for that.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I mean, because the iPad made it onto my list too, and I guess to kind of like go along with what you're saying.
Yeah, because that's your next one, right?
Yeah, that's my next one. And you said a lot of things about the iPad that I agree with, so I'm not going to repeat that. But for me specifically, I think what made the difference is getting the Magic Keyboard for it, which is Apple's keyboard that basically makes it into a laptop. Like it has a stiff hinge, so you can use it sitting on your lap without any issues, and it's got like regular keys and a touchpad. I mean, it makes it like a little laptop. And that to me is what has really made it useful for me, because my laptop is pretty big and bulky, and I don't always want that. If I'm just doing casual use, or if I'm just going to go to a coffee shop to hang out, I don't always want to take that computer with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so now for me, the iPad can basically be like a little ultralight computer. And I still feel like there are things that I can't do on it that are easier on a computer, but for a lot of like casual stuff, it's great.
I used to take my laptop with me everywhere I traveled. Like, I always brought my laptop with me because I want to like look at my pictures and do that sort of thing. And the iPad has replaced 80% of my photo editing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a few little videos on it as well, because like now you have DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
And it's like, it does 80% of the things.
Yeah.
And I've been just so happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, weirdly happy. I know this sounds like an Apple ad. I never thought I would be an iPad person.
Here you
and
are.
here I am. Like, I use my iPad more than you. I was like,
Yeah.
Daniel, did you know about this feature? You've had an iPad for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this is the iPad that I have used the most out of any iPad I've ever owned.
Nice.
And I do think a lot of it for me is that keyboard, because I would always end up in a situation where like a lot of what I do when my casual computing use is writing stuff, like
Sure.
typing things. And that's not realistic on an iPad that doesn't have a keyboard. So that made a big difference for me. And that keyboard accessory was not cheap, but it was worth it. So
Nice. All right. So I'm going to go with my number 2, which is another TikTok here. You forced me into buying a new computer this year.
I did.
Again,
Yep.
just like
Kicking
that lens.
and screaming.
Golly. And because, we bought those fancy, cool new cameras, and we're shooting all this, 6K, 6K, 422, 10-bit, fancy pants, OpenKit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And golly, even
that was part of it. But I think the biggest thing was that we really did much bigger projects this year.
That's true. We have done a much larger projects this year from last year. And my M1 Air, which was, it still is a phenomenal computer, I just couldn't keep up. And so I bought an M1 Max, like on fire sale or whatever from B&H. And that has cut my like render times, by, something that would have took 5 hours takes like 30 minutes kind of thing. It's tens of times faster. And it's been transformative. There are things that we're doing now in our video edits that I literally couldn't do before.
Stuff like adding noise, adding grain and stuff.
Yeah, like I do most of our color work. And so dealing with like certain effects or certain grains or doing like noise reduction on stuff, there were some things where I was like, I can't do noise reduction because it's going to render for 20 hours, literally 20 hours.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I can run this, proof it, and then run it again and still meet deliverable.
Yep.
And now I can it takes at worst, a couple hours kind of thing.
Yeah. My comment on that is, so, we both, before, spoiler alert, my next one is also my new M1 Max MacBook Pro. But, we both had the M1 Air before that. And I made a lot of YouTube videos with that computer and produced a lot of videos where I did all the editing on a 13-inch MacBook Air.
Yeah.
And it got the job done. It was great. What's funny about this is, a while back on Twitter, I don't remember the exact conversation, but somebody mentioned something about a MacBook Pro with, like whatever specs. And I replied and said that I think that like 32 gigs of RAM, on like a M1 MacBook Pro is, probably the sweet spot for video editing. I maybe actually said 64. I feel like I said 64 gigs. So that's what we both have.
Yeah, right.
And I stand by that. I think that's, I didn't say that you had to have it. I said I think it's the sweet spot for it. So many people replied to that thread and were just like, well, I edit my videos on a potato and it's just fine. So I think you're being silly by saying that. And so many people said it. And I feel like what they don't realize is like, when you've been on both sides of that, where you have seen the lesser thing and like, then you've used something better, like, to be honest, like when I see people say that, it just tells me kind of where they're at in their video editing journey.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I used a much lesser computer for a long time and it was fine.
Yeah. Some people aren't ever going to do a 20 cam multicam where they have to, go through and edit this like crazy music video. And like, whatever.
And if you have a lower end computer and you want to edit videos, you should not let it hold you back. And you can do it, on lower end hardware, and you should be like proud of your results. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's called proxies.
But everything that we've done since getting those computers has been made better by having a really powerful computer and having a lot of RAM, having a good CPU and GPU. I mean, mostly it's just like that quicker turnaround time. You mentioned a couple of things where it's like we literally couldn't have done this otherwise, but it's also things like I've just gotten done editing all day and I want to quickly run this export and look at it so that I can like close my computer down for the day. Like, it's nice that I don't have to wait 4 hours for that.
Yep. Or like, okay, I finished. Now I'm going to check this in the morning because it's going to render all night. And I know that, the money that one spends on an M1 Max MacBook, or even like the M3 nowadays, right? You could build a crazy PC. Mm-hmm. If you're running DaVinci Resolve, you could build a crazy PC with all the GPU that you need and be even faster and be even better. Yep. But I mean, we were editing in Final Cut for the longest time. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of been the driver for like why Mac, but the mobility and like the power ratio for these new M1, like the M series machines, M1, M2, M3, like you get like 10 hours of battery.
Yeah.
Like if you're video editing, it's like 4 or whatever, but it's just nuts. Mm-hmm. It's nuts how much battery life you get, but then also you get the other side of it and you can plug in and you can do crazy edits. And I feel like it's just right now it's the perfect balance of like power to battery to size.
Yeah.
And like the screen is just crazy good. And I've just been so happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, the portability is kind of a big thing too, because sometimes you're on a trip and you want to be able to do some editing, or we've had times where we go and shoot an event and we need to give some deliverables like right then, like, the client saying, we want to be able to post some stuff on social media. Can you get us like, a couple of photos or like a short video so that we can post it like soon? You can't do that if you don't have a laptop.
Right.
So I don't know. That was my number one pick for this year. Not that my old laptop was bad. I loved that computer, but I've gotten so much value out of my new one.
Yeah, those have been huge upgrades.
It was expensive, but I feel like it's already paid for itself in terms of being able to get some of these projects done.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So my number one was my Beyerdynamic DT770 headphones. Similar to the C-stand.
This is so funny. This just more so than the C-stand. This was long overdue.
I somehow made it to 2023 without buying like real over-the-ear headphones that are like studio quality.
You would come over to film this to record this podcast, and it was like every week you would bring another terrible pair of headphones that you like pulled out of a drawer somewhere, and they were all bad, and it was the worst.
Yep. But now I got my over-the-ear headphones closed back. I got cool gel pads for them, and I just couldn't be happier. And I use these to actually edit video, and I can hear what's going on.
That was what I thought of when I saw this on the list, because I remember like I would tell you about audio stuff and be like, oh yeah, I fixed this thing. You're like, oh no, I couldn't hear it. And then now I feel like you're like, oh yeah, there was too much reverb in that recording.
All accurate. Previously, using AirPods or whatever, not as good. I'm just gonna say it. If you're editing video and you care about sound, just like get some like the DT770s cost me like $100 something bucks, or you can get the MX50s. Those aren't that expensive. Like, oh my gosh, so worth it. I use them all the time. And I've just Is there anything else out there that I've been putting off that I really need to dive into, Daniel?
I'm gonna have to think about it, because probably. But
yeah,
I feel like to me those are some of the most satisfying purchases, when you have something that's not that expensive and just makes a huge like disproportionate impact in your stuff. And those headphones are a perfect example of that, where it's like you use them frequently and it's just such a big upgrade over what you had before. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. Those best tech purchases.
Yeah.
I got one more topic for you.
Oh man, more? More?
I'm kidding. We'll talk about that Sigma 70 to 200 later.
Yeah. We'll punt that one to next week.
Cool.
It's been an exciting year of purchases.
Yep, man. Get ready for it. I'm pumped about the next one.
Yeah.
I really got to dig into this one, but we're gonna.
The next one's the is that the what we're talking about?
The camera brands in review.
Yeah.
We're gonna basically whip out our report cards and see how all our good friends are doing.
Yep. Cool. Well, you can look forward to hearing that one next week. That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter at CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.